Well, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the delay here. I've been running a little bit behind and uh, tried to get this done earlier. I don't have the capacity to do this at the house right now. My microphone was not working, or at least under my technology, it wasn't working. Not sure what was going on there. But anyway, hope everyone's had a good day and having a good Thursday here. We're going to continue on talking about the Master of the Sea, and this following right along with what Brother TJ and Jody have done thus far in talking about the miracles of Jesus. Okay, today we'll go to Matthew in 8:23. It says, "And when he was entered into a ship, his disciples followed him, and behold, there arose a great tempest in the sea, insomuch that the ship was covered with waves, but he was asleep." Okay, and we see those first two verses here. And, I thought that this is a very simple devotion, a storm, Jesus rebuking it and showing once again that his power exceeds just, over the human life, but he is in control of the world and the atmosphere and, the weather and all things. But then look at this first verse right here, that he goes into a ship and his disciples followed him. And I go back to the study that we did at one time. A fan or a follower. Not a Fan. That was the book that we did by Kyle Idleman. And, we asked that question there. How would a fan handle this? That they're going onto the ship, and a fan is going to say, well, now, Jesus, hold on, let's check the weather for the day. Where are we going? How long are we going to be on this boat? Because, see, and the Bible is full of storms and boat analogies. And the reason being is because one of the reasons is because that was the people that, the disciples, that's kind of what they knew, but how they made their living on the sea and as fishermen and things like that. But I also think about it as, those are good examples of storms because, if you was on the dry ground and storms come, you're going to seek some shelter. You're going to get under a tree. You can kindly provide for yourself some shelter from the storm. But when you're out on the sea and storms come, there's not a whole lot that you can do. You're at the mercy of the storm. And I think that when we look at this from the fan or the follower aspect, fans are going to ask those questions, but a follower was what the disciples did. They got on the boat and they went. They didn't ask questions. They got on. And a lot of times we'll do that when things start getting a little bit uncomfortable for us. And maybe the storm's not here, but the clouds are, starting to gather. We can see them in the distance, or we, hear about things or whatever. And we feel that they might be a storm brewing. It is so easy for us to go into the fan mentality and start asking the questions and say, okay, God, well, I'm going to sit down over here. I'll hide right now. And when the storm's over, you come back and get me, and we'll continue on. But as a follower, as a true follower of Christ, we know that that's not really an option, that we follow him, and we go where he leads us. And, knowing that he says, I'll never leave you and I'll never forsake you. And so therefore, our jobs as Christians, we don't like storms. I'm probably as least confrontational of a person. I'm not that least confrontational, but I don't like confrontation. Okay, I try to keep things as simple as possible, and I don't like to cause a lot of controversy. But nonetheless, our job as Christians is not to dodge storms. We don't go look for trouble, but we know that as storms come, whether it's a pandemic, a bad doctor's report, a rough spot in our marriage, a rough financial situation, whatever it might be, that we can't just say, okay, God, I'm going to sit here and you do all the work, or I'm getting out of this because this is going to be tough and whatever. We follow him, we go, we do what he says to do. And that's what a true follower does. A fan is going to be when the things are right, when the conditions are right, we'll go. But when it's tough, we're we're not going to be that fan. We're going to be a fan, and kind of like a fan of the Cowboys, which I guess I owe Jody an amen when he made his analogy the other day about me and Rick being Cowboy fans with him. That's tough. That's a storm of itself. I'm just kidding, but it is tough. But being a fan of the Cowboys, when it's good, we're bragging on it. But we do that a lot with Jesus too. When things are smooth sailing, we're all about Jesus. But when the storm comes, that's the deciding point. Are we going to jump ship? Or maybe if we think there might be a storm, we don't even get on the boat. So a question that I got out of that right there was, are we a fan or a follower? The disciples, they followed. And then we talk about the sea, the storm that came about the sea, the great tempest. Some of the commentaries and studies that I saw on that it was more of an earthquake that caused the sea to be in such a violent mode. And not your average storm. But as I said before, the things about storms are, again, you don't control them. The water, you really can't control the water, whether you're, in a boat on a kayak, and, it's pretty enjoyable to be in a kayak and ride around out the reservoir or on a pond or even a river that's just kind of slowly moving on down. But when you get in the rough water, you're fighting for your life to try to keep that thing upright. You're at the mercy of the water. You're at the mercy of the storm. And so regardless of the storm, how violent this one here is, some of the commentaries even mentioned that it was of the devil, that it was a plan of the devil to try to kill Jesus, and that he had sent this violent storm to take him out. Of course, we'll see that here a little bit more in a minute. Okay, so continue on to verse 25. It says, and his disciples came to him and woke him, saying, Lord, save us, we perish. And I look at that and I think of the simplicity of that prayer. Lord, save us. We perish, and we feel that way lots of times. Lord, I just can't take it no more. I'm tired of the negativity. I'm tired of the, whatever it might be. I'm sick of dealing with this pandemic. I'm sick of fighting for this or fighting for that or standing for this or standing for that or whatever else. But that's a simple prayer that we need to say when we get to that point. Now, Lord, help us. I'm going under. The waves seem to be over my head. There's nothing wrong with that prayer. Lord, save us. And he said unto them, why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? And we know that Christ has said that before. And it's not that he's belittling them, but he's just wanting to remind them that, I'm in this boat with you. You followed me here, and I'll never leave you, and I'll never forsake you. And so, putting our trust in Jesus, we're going to go through some storms. If you're out there and you've not put your faith and trust in Jesus, you're going through storms. But he says that question to them, why are you fearful? Not because he didn't realize that there was a storm around. He could see the storm, but he also knew that he was in the boat, and he wanted them to realize that as well. Okay? Because look what he does. He says, then he arose and he rebuked the winds of the sea, and there was a great calm. And going back to what I said before about many of the commentaries I've read, and the Dake Study Bible and stuff talks about that this was a storm that was sent by the devil, because otherwise he would not have rebuked something that God had done in the weather. But he rebukes the winds and the sea, and there is a great calm. Regardless of whether it was a storm sent by the devil or not, they obeyed. The storm obeyed. And the men marveled, saying, what manner of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him? We don't understand the storms that we go through at the time. We might understand a little bit about the storm, but we don't understand the whole purpose because we get snapshots. We don't get to see the end of how this thing's all going to play out. But we go to John here and real quickly look at these verses here, and this is concerning the passing of Lazarus. And very familiar with us. We've done this devotion as well. It says, when Jesus heard that, talking about that Lazarus had passed, he said, this sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God might be glorified thereby. And I think about it, the storms that we go through, we don't understand the magnitude of it. We don't understand, the whys and the how comes and all the questions that we'll ask God. But that God receives the glory from it, that the Son of God might be glorified. And then, one of the tools of the devil is you're going through this because of something you've done, or you're going through this because God just doesn't love you, and I think that's the reason verse 5 is here. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister, Mary, and Lazarus. Okay, and so just the fact that we go through storms does not mean that God does not love us. Jesus loved them, but yet they had gone through this storm. Lazarus has died. And, and so then when he's talking to his disciples about it, and they think he's asleep, and he's like, no, Lazarus is dead, And he tells them, he says, and I'm glad for your sakes that I was not there, here in verse 15, to the intent that ye may believe. Nevertheless, let us go unto him. And in essence, this is another form of a storm. Had Lazarus not died, they would not seen Jesus resurrecting. Had the disciples not followed Jesus onto the ship, they wouldn't know that he had the power over the winds and the waves as well. And the same, again, this is easy to say, and it's sometimes hard to live. But the same Jesus that raised Lazarus from the dead, the same one that calmed the storm, is able to calm your storm. And so it's fitting to ask the question, what's the storm that you're going through? What is it that you're dealing with? I don't know. We all have our own storms. I know there's one that we share right now, and that being the pandemic and all the stuff that goes on with it. But the same as with, had Lazarus not passed, they wouldn't have seen the miracle of God that he performs, that when Jesus raised him from the dead. Had the disciples not followed Jesus onto the ship, they wouldn't have known that he had the power to control the winds and the waves. And so whatever storm it is that you're going through, same thing. Lord, save us, help us, save us. And he may calm the storm, but then he may just calm us through the storm. And either way, that needs to be our prayer. God, there's nothing wrong with praying, God, that this pandemic will end and end quickly. But we can also say, God, let our light shine. May we be a follower of you through this, not just a fan. And when things get tough, we sit down and we quit on you, but that we keep on keeping on. There's still a commission that he's given us, and he doesn't say when it's smooth sailing and everything's good, go ye therefore, and spread the love of God, spread the gospel. But he says, go ye therefore. And so let's keep on going. Regardless of the storm, know this, God's got control of it. God's got control. And I put this down here at the bottom, the boats and the storms. Again, you may be a old Navy seaman and just be very good at and live a long time out on the seas. I don't know. I've been on a couple of cruises and have tried to navigate a pontoon boat or a kayak around the waters a little bit. And I know this, that when storms come, or when I think of storms come, I want to get out of there. And I think it's one of the reasons, as I said, to start this off with, is why Jesus used this analogy so much. Because again, it's beyond our control. And regardless of the storm that you're in, if it's, not of our own sins or whatever else, it's probably going to be out of our control. A lot of the storms that come our way are out of our control. And, The same as, again, with the disciples, the same as with Mary and Martha. Jesus is going to go with us through those storms. He can calm the storms. He can calm us during the storms, as we said. But the purpose of it is that he gets the glory. He gets the glory. And we've already seen many lives changed for the good during this pandemic and so saved. And that is such a blessing. But we also see people, hunkering down and hiding and allowing the devil to allow them to grow cold during this pandemic as well. So my prayer this afternoon is, regardless of the storm that you're going through, there was a miracle maker on that ship, and his name was Jesus. And he calmed the storm. He rebuked it. And when the people cried out to him, God heard their prayer. And so, if you're in need of a miracle today, cry out to the one who is able. And then just, allow him to do what only he can do. And then that is to calm the storms of our life. And ask those questions. Sometimes they're hard questions to ask, but God, what do we need to be learning through this? Lord, help us to be the followers that you want us to be, and not the fans. It's easier to be a fan, but help us to be true followers so that we can see the miracles that you have for us, Father. Again, we keep on keeping on for you. I pray that you have a great day. I pray that you've enjoyed this devotion here from God's Word. Again, we see here that God has the power. We've seen him turn water into wine, and we've seen him heal physical ailments, physical sicknesses. And now we see him with the miracle of controlling a storm and the seas and calming those. So truly just another example that Jesus is able to handle any and all things that we bring before him. So I pray you have a great day. We love you. Look forward to seeing you here real soon.